I'll give you an example. MGM Grand reached out like, "Hey, we want to make a movie out of this character. Will you be willing to make a deal?" But when they got into the call to negotiate, well, they were offering less money than what one episode made on ads on YouTube. It was like, all right, you guys are just trying to rip us off. It feels like you're trying to flash a little bit of money at an indie creator and hoping they would go for it and not recognize the value of what you had.
This is Unfiltered Filmmakers, where we talk to writers, producers, and directors about how they sold their scripts, got financing, and made their first films. If you're looking for an insider's conversation about the filmmaking experience, this is the podcast for you.
I'm here sitting down with Joshua Slice. He's the creator of an animated children's cartoon called Lucas the Spider, which started as like a nugget on YouTube and then grew to this like animated show that's now, you can watch it on Netflix. This conversation just covers how he went from the nugget to the animated show and then how he capitalized on viral moments. So thanks for being here, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're both animators in the industry. The last time I physically saw you in person was Rhythm and Hues. Right when they had just moved to El Segundo, they were still kind of building that space out. I think you might already been there. I came on at the end of Hop, like the very tail end of Hop.
Okay, then we came at the same time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mainly animated on the vignettes in Hop.
Oh yeah.
And then I was there for all the Alvin and Chipmunks. And you continued after that, right?
Yeah, just one more show. I'm just remembering now that Hop is one of Illumination's first movies, and now you look at what Illumination is now.
Oh wow,
It
is it?
completely changed.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Wow.
I remember at one point seeing a slate and being like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then once Despicable Me came out, that's what it was.
That's crazy. Did you leave right after? Because I left right as Life of Pi was starting.
Oh, gotcha. I did Snow White and the Huntsman, and then shortly after left for talent development program at Disney.
The rumor on the street, the myth on the street is after Rhythm and Hues, you went to Disney, and then after Disney, you moved/went to Blue Sky on the East Coast. And then when that finished up, you had a potential contract back at Disney on Wreck-It Ralph, and then you left Blue Sky to come back to Disney. And somewhere in that space, that road trip back is the inception of the Lucas the Spider.
So it's Disney, Taldev, then wasn't kept, so I went to Blue Sky, finished a contract there, came back, went to Luma, finished it, Blue Sky, Disney, Blue Sky, Disney.
Wait, you were bouncing back and forth?
Yeah.
At the time?
It was because their crunch was always in the fall and Disney was always in the summer, so it was like this trade-off of artists who were coming off contracts.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah.
How did the idea for Lucas the Spider come about?
Yeah, so the last time I was at Blue Sky, I wasn't having a particularly good time, and I'd already made up in my mind, like, okay, I'm moving back to California for good, and I just need to wait until an offer allows me to do that, so I don't just get up and leave and then burn through all my savings. That meant going through one more winter, just cold and just the snow and the cold and the isolation. So I'm like, all right, I need a creative project. I think at some point I was looking at images of cute things, like, I want to make a character, and I saw a little jumping spider in a leaf, like a Natural Geographic photo, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cute. I wonder if I could make that in 3D, but just as cute, if not more. And so it kind of became this little challenge. Yeah, that winter, spent a few months just making the model with no intention of using it in any way. Just wanted to see if I could make it. Around February, March, I got an offer to come back on Wreck-It Ralph 2. So I was like, perfect. That's what I was waiting for. So I working on the spider, it kept me sane. It was finished. And now it's off. Right as they gave me the offer, I put in my 2 weeks notice. I told my apartment that I was leaving. And then a couple weeks went by and the movie was delayed and they pulled all the offers. So I was like, that's funny. So I ran over to my manager. Hey, has anyone ever quit? And then said, no, just kidding. I'm not quitting. No, but what are you saying? And so basically what we worked out is they knew I wanted to leave. They weren't just going to give me the job back, but I also didn't want it back. So I was like, all right, what if I just stayed until the end of Ferdinand? Because you're still looking for temps. I can help out. And then I'll just delay my 2 weeks, 4 months down the line. At that point, I knew, okay, August to May, that's going to create this planned 9 months off. Okay, I'll take a break in my career, do some fun things, go on a road trip. Ended up teaching a few classes at Art Center to kind of keep me a little bit employed. Yeah, a couple of months into that, when I finally revisited the character I built and I had animated it to what was the first clip that went on YouTube.
So at that point, that was still just exercise or no?
Yeah, it was just having fun. Something I like to do. And back then it was still in the mindset of making demo reels, like you're always working, always building the demo reel. So this is just the newest addition to that.
Do you feel like there was kind of like some influence?
The most influential thing to, I guess, the structure of it actually came from college. Pixar taught classes at the school I went to, the Academy of Art. There was Pixar 1, 2, and 3. By the time you get to the Pixar 3, everyone made a 30-second short. But what that really taught us is that you can tell a pretty good story in 30 seconds if you trim all the fat. Every choice has to get you to the next point in the story. And I think that exercise really trained me to, okay, if I'm going to have to do a 20-second, 25-second piece of animation that's 800 frames, make sure that it's important frames. It's so funny. It's like it needed to be long enough to start hooking those video ads on YouTube, and short enough where I can actually get it done, because animation is really difficult, and rendering all those frames.
And you were doing all the other stuff as well, like the modeling, texturing, rigging, lighting, and stuff. Mm-hmm. And obviously being an animator, so you needed to kind of get to the meat of what you were trying to do, which is the animation, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Every week I would release, when I was in like the thick of it was like an episode every 3 weeks. First episode was all about the idea, the recording, the shooting video. 1 week of it was animating, and then it sort of bled over into rendering, because I still only had like a few computers that would still brute force it.
So you knew you were going to still go on to Disney. You just had your time off. When you released the first one, did you expect the response that it came with?
It's so funny. It was a friend who told me to put it on YouTube because he thought it could be something special and unique, and I was like, okay, throw it on YouTube, because I had my Vimeo account, which is what everyone had. There's another website, Imager.com, is sort of like Instagram before Instagram, and there's a sub channel called AWW, which I would go all the time and just share cute things with friends. When I created the character, I took a screenshot of it, made a post on the Imager, and I was like, hey, I'm a long-time viewer, first-time poster, and just wanted to share something I made. And within 24 hours, it had started to trend on top of the Imager list. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the most famous I'm ever going to be. This is my 15 minutes of fame right here.
Famous last words.
Yeah. And I remember the numbers on YouTube going to like 10,000 views that first night, and thinking like, wow.
What year was this?
This was November of 2017. It was clearly generated from Imager, because I think the post itself got seen 100,000 times. So 1 in 10 actually saw the video of the thumbnail that was posted. I was teaching a class at Art Center. 3 days later, I'm teaching class. I remember having the YouTube link open. I keep clicking refresh because it was about to cross over 1 million.
3 days later.
Yeah.
And so what's going through your mind at this point? Like, you're hitting 1 million.
I was like, I should make more of these.
And so that's going to be my next question. Even when you released that first one, were you already thinking an idea of releasing more?
No, not at all. In fact, I almost didn't do it at all, because when I got the audio from my sister to record her kids, the stuff I got back was so just messy and just polluted with other people in the room talking that it was a miracle that I cut anything together to make any sort of sense. And the first couple attempts at it weren't great. So I was so close to just not doing it all together, and then finally put something together that made sense. And then like, all right, I can work with this. My intention was just do this project and then move on to the next thing. Because at the time, this 9 months off, I was like doing Spartan races, checking out new breweries. I was just sort of waking up every morning like, what do I want to do with my life right now?
So when the first one got to 1 million, you weren't planning on doing more. So then right after you saw the virality of that, you decided, okay, maybe I should do more. What was the next moves?
Yeah, so I had the characters, and filming it I found was pretty simple. The rendering wasn't too bad. So I just started coming up with other ideas, and started to script out, hey, talk to my sister, could you get Lucas to say these lines? Yeah, because the first one I just asked him, could you just talk about what it's like being a spider, and just letting kid imagination kind of take over. So then after that, it was try to narrate. And this is where I think the Pixar classes really influence, because now I'm creating at least some arc. I'm thinking of it like a comic artist would make a 4-panel joke, make something that can get a laugh or some sort of reaction.
You do a couple more. By the third one, the first one had gotten, you'd probably gotten 20 million views across 3, I'm thinking. roughly. And then you were like on Good Morning America. You were on like a national talk
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, I did an interview with News Network in Australia, web articles. Man, it felt like it just kept growing. With every step, there was something more to explore and figure out. And then every morning I wake up and there's 10 new problems to solve. And the whole process was just keep solving little problems.
Like what kind of problems would you say?
Oh, I mean, anything from like finding out that someone took the Facebook page Lucas the Spider and having to barter with them to have a place to put the character on Facebook. Things like how come the fur is popping on the renders, got to figure that out. There's money coming in, so maybe I should get a better camera, a better computer. Third episode, I was already starting to think about making a plushie, but as sort of a novelty scale, you know, like maybe pie in the sky a couple thousand, that would be incredible, you know, but
Yeah.
just making this be a memento, like a thing to remember this experience by. The whole process of designing it took so long that it grew from like 100,000 subscribers to like 1.5 million by the time it was getting ready to be ready. And so that helped because it allowed things to keep getting bigger as it was sort of working itself out.
Yeah.
There's so many things. Like you wake up and you're like, yeah, the factory doesn't have this type of fur. So how do you want to design? It's hard to sit here and remember what all these problems were, but like I kind of look at it like to make something that sort of takes off and becomes something, it doesn't all happen in one clean step. It's the accumulation of just 1 million little steps until you finally stop and be like, oh my gosh.
You're pretty much building the plane as you fly it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right? What type of people were reaching out? What type of conversations were you having early on, like 3 to 4 episodes in?
Let's see. This part was so hard because it was hard to tell who was like a friend who wants to help you grow and kind of work with you and who's trying to rip you off in some way or take advantage. Yeah, we get offers. I'll give you an example. MGM Grand reached out like, hey, we want to make a movie out of this character. Will you be willing to make a deal? And at this time, I had already partnered with Fresh TV, the studio that bought it, to make it a TV show. So they kind of handled it. But when they got into the call to negotiate, well, they were offering less money than what one episode made on ads on YouTube. It was like, all right, you guys are just trying to rip us off. It feels like you're trying to flash a little bit of money at an indie creator and hoping they would go for it and not recognize the value of what you had.
Gotcha.
But because YouTube was pulling in so much money, I had the confidence to say, well, no, like you're not going to underbid me just to kind of swipe this off me.
So you said the feature deal or talks came after you had already had the TV show. Who would you say was the first real offer?
Met with Illumination, a couple of meetings.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I think we were both feeling each other out of what exactly the plan was. You know, like, was I going to join Illumination and make these episodes and find a home for them? You know, like, did they want me as a creator to help work on other things? We were sort of figuring it out, but that also took some time. And as that was happening, it kept growing and growing and growing. So that built my confidence of, well, maybe I don't need to make a deal. Maybe just keep going as I am.
Yeah.
That came to a point where I was like, okay, no, thank you. I think I'm good where I'm going. That's when Fresh TV reached out. And right away I told them, I'm like, look, I listened to your offer. I'll have a meeting, but it's unlikely I'll want to sell or do anything with it beyond what I'm already doing on YouTube. But they pitched when they jumped on of all the producers, executives, like jumped on a call. They were very clear about what their vision was. And by the end of the call, they're like, all right, we're going to email you a contract that you can actually look through with all the terms, this is what you get if this happens. That felt very real and tangible. So it gave us something to, seriously consider.
Yeah. At this point, you already had a lawyer, an agent?
Fortunate thing is that Lucas, the kid who did the voice, his mom, so my sister, is a lawyer. So
nice.
She has that mama bear, like, I'm going to protect my son, but also use my lawyer, knowledge to help us through this. Because that's a huge expense. Like any legal problem, if you have to pay a lawyer to like navigate, it's just, is this going to cost more than the problem is costing me?
I'm guessing by this point, you're already back at Disney.
Yeah, so I went back for Wreck-It Ralph.
Yep.
This particular time at Disney, they had deep cuts after production.
Yep.
And so I was one of them. kind of worked out because it allowed me to jump back on to doing more episodes. And
You got a couple episodes out. The deal already started with Fresh TV and you're back at Disney, right? Like, are those three things happening at the same time?
so what I signed with them is the option to buy. They write up this contract where they can execute up to a certain time the option to buy the rights. They take that contract to all the, the distributors, people with money, and they say, hey, we have the rights here. We can execute it at any time. So as soon as you can agree to make a show, we'll execute it and then get it going.
Did Disney have a conversation with you? Did it get on Disney's radar?
Yeah, it's funny. When I went back to Disney, I made a point to sit down with the lawyer and being like, all right, tell me exactly what I can and can't do. Like just
A lawyer or Disney lawyer?
A Disney lawyer.
Got it.
So just so it's like, so I don't get myself in trouble. I was pretty shocked at how lenient things were. There's all this talk about make sure you carve out your ideas and make sure you protect yourself. I think that's only really applicable if the thing you're making is exactly the same as something Disney's making. Then there's some, litigation but because what I was doing was nothing that Disney was planning or thinking of, it was like, that's cool.
Gotcha.
You do your thing. And in fact, I remember talking to a lawyer, like he has interest in like writing and other sort of creative projects. So
did you have the aspirations to move into directing now? Because you obviously had the opportunity, but like going into your animation contract and Wreck-It Ralph, were you thinking of levying that, whether it be at Disney or outside of Disney?
I was entertaining that thought, but the more I thought about it, the more I started to realize that maybe that's not something for me. I think a couple factors kind of come into play. I think to direct something, you need to stick with a project for like 4 or 5 years. And man, my brain is just scattered. Like if I'm going to work on something long term, it better only be like a year. Otherwise, things, I tend to tire out on
I'm
things.
the same way.
Yeah, and like all my ideas are things that could potentially be done in less than 2 years. So it's just finding the time for it.
I remember I had a conversation with you. It felt like we were in the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And you made it out. Like you made it. Go. And you were like, the aspirations was to be a Disney animator.
Well, the thing I've learned about directing, especially at Disney, is that no one goes to Disney with an idea and then that idea gets made exactly as you imagined it. It grows a lot. So you're kind of a shepherd to stories and ideas, and you need to love that process. You need to love being like the one who's sort of navigating it. So if you're someone who maybe you have ideas, so you think, oh man, I want to be a director because I want to make this idea, that could be a very tricky, challenge, because you have to balance the money of it, how much it's going to cost, and then how much control are you going to have if you're someplace that does have the money.
Yep.
It's like a perfect trade-off, I think. For very cheap, you can have all the control, but if for $100 million budget, you're going to be...
You're not even creative.
Yeah.
At this particular situation, right after you signed the deal, is there anything you would have done differently?
No, I think... Well, yes, but only because COVID happened. My whole thing of, selling the IP, giving it a chance to become something greater than what I can do, and then allowing me to go and do projects that are always different year in and year out. I always wanted to do that and be part of like a team on a day-to-day basis, go into a place that is inspiring, have coworkers. I had 1 year of that before COVID sent us all home. So it'd be very interesting if I would make the same choice if we were all in lockdown, because if I'm locked down in a room working on a Disney movie, well, that's very different now. And maybe I don't make that choice. Maybe I say, I'm just going to keep doing Lucas the Spider episodes because that is more lucrative and it's the same experience that everyone's having being at home.
You go back into Disney, you're in the middle of your contract and you have this opportunity. And did people start looking at you different or treating you different? What were those kind of like experiences?
Surprisingly, no. And that's one part that I'm looking back at, thankful for. I didn't feel any sort of weird treatment. I can maybe think of a handful of people, but not at Disney. Like, I think at Disney, everyone sort of has a sense like, it's a really cool thing. Like, and there's a lot of people there that have won awards, and it was more of like we're proud of you for doing this.
Yeah.
Then.
So now you have the show in development. You're back at Disney, and you're moonlighting, creating YouTube snippets of Lucas the Spider.
The last episode I did was before I came back to Disney after I was not kept for Wreck-It Ralph 2. And then my involvement from then on was just reviewing characters' scripts. So once they greenlit it and the ball was rolling, I would get bits and pieces of things, and I would always tell them, it's like, look, I know you guys probably have a lot of people giving notes and curating the show. I'm going to give notes as if it were me doing it, and so take what you want, but I'm just going to talk freely about what I would like and what I would do different. And so feel free to override me if it doesn't work for whatever reason, because there'd be times where I'd see like a script or a scenario and be like, oh, that's not it at all. But then I think, well, this might be a new vision, and I want to be respectful. I don't want to be the hard ass director who gives the brutal notes.
Was that contractually the level of creativity you negotiated in it, or you wanted in the process of the show?
I think the contract allowed me to have more control. Directing episodes, I think, could have been an option, but my goal was I really wanted to be at Disney, and they knew that. So
you did the George Lucas move, which I loved, the concept of the toys merch. And I was like, ooh, the George Lucas move. I like it. I like it. Dive back into like the decision to do plush.
Yeah, so I started early on. I had this idea, like, let's make a plush. Like, it'd be a really cool, maybe I'll make a couple dollars off of it. And got that process going. So that's sort of happening in the background as I'm making content. And it's so funny. This whole process, there's so many like things that were just serendipitously happened right at the right time. And one of them was YouTube was launching this idea called the merch shelf, because ad revenue was starting to decline for various reasons. I'm not sure how it all works, but the ad revenue was declining and they wanted to give creators different ways to make money. So one of them was create a merch shelf where people can go to a store with like your brand print on demand through this company called Teespring that would fulfill all the orders. So you create the products, and then it's sort of Teespring will make the t-shirt or whatever and then ship it off. But because of the infrastructure was all in place, they were able to custom work with creators and say, hey, so if you are making this plush, we can just send all the plushies to the factory, and then we'll fulfill it. We'll add it to the merch shelf, and then just add it like any other item. And now people can just buy it directly from YouTube. And at the time, because this new thing they're trying to promote, the deal we got was super good. Like a lot of time merchandise deals would be like 50-50, where half your money is going away to the people shipping it and packaging and all that. So we got a great deal, which allowed just a good return on every plushie sold. We also launched a sort of a Kickstarter-esque where you put in a pre-order. That number got up to like 84,000. And then we decided, okay, because it's still growing every day and we have to cut off the pre-launch at some point, we put in an order for 100,000 and then decided to sell more, just sell whatever was left over. Man, I have lots of photos, of prototype photos coming back from the factory. Because the companies here that make plushies like that, they're here in the US and they work with factories in China. There's a couple of bridges of notes. And so you get something back. And I found that the best way to communicate notes is just to draw over and do Photoshop edits and be like, just make it look like that. So yeah, exactly. I was doing shots in Wreck-It Ralph and giving notes what the plushie should look like. The crazy thing about Wreck-It Ralph is that it's a movie all about social media, this and that. And I remember I was posting my million subscriber gold YouTube button.
What did that feel like when it first started airing as a show?
It's like a roller coaster of emotion. You see the thumbnail on HBO. First it came out on HBO Max, and it's like that excitement of like, oh my gosh, it happened. I can't believe it happened. And you watch an episode, you see it you see it created by a character. And then the roller coaster of emotion is I'm trained to constantly critique anything I work on. So it's really hard for me to watch an episode and not be like, ooh, like, and when it's one person, I mean, you discover shortcuts, efficiencies, and better at it. When you have a team, you had to make sure everyone is at a certain level. But I think their quotas were like 20, 30 seconds a week, whereas Disney Animation is 3.5 a week.
They just greenlit one season, right?
It was 26 episodes, which I think in some areas it was like season 1 to season 2. Like internationally, it's in a lot of countries because it's easily doubleable, and I think they broke it up that way. But I think on HBO Max, it was all like one season.
Were there any talks or plans for any more like creativity with the brand?
Right when the show came out, this was late 2022. 2022 was the year of everything gets greenlit.
Yep.
And 2023 was like the correction year. So it comes on HBO Max, and I think it just a few months later, it was part of a deep purge of all these animated shows. They took all these shows off because of tax reasons to claim losses. And so it went away domestically. A year later, it comes back. And then it felt like kind of an afterthought that they made a deal with Netflix and they would go to Netflix. But since landing there, it's been in the top 10 kids shows watched for, it's been 100 some days since October 30th. At this point, it sort of peeks its head in the top 9 and 10 spot every couple of days, but it was within like top 7 for like 75 days.
That's amazing.
That was exciting because it's like awesome. Kids now have a place where they can go and be in a safe place. A parent doesn't have to worry about them drifting away someplace inappropriate. They're enjoying this like all over the US. And talk about good timing. Right towards the end of when I was making episodes on YouTube, they changed rules with how advertisers worked on YouTube, where you couldn't data mine children and other things where if it's a channel for kids, you can't have comments. You can't have a community tab. So I'm not sure Lucas the Spider, as it was done, could have been made 6 months later because there's no interactivity with the fans or subscribers anymore.
Oh, wow.
And we were able to drive so much. So yeah, super grateful about that timing. And the other thing I thought about was I had a friend who has at the time, a 2-year-old. He was like, no, I love it. It was the only thing my son would watch. And for 2 years, it was like the only thing that would capture his attention. So from our point of view, we were like, here's more money. Keep making more.
I think you said the Warner Brothers entity did the Netflix distribution.
Warner Brothers makes deals with Netflix, I think, to supplement the cost of shows. I think DreamWorks does this too. You'll see DreamWorks movies end up on Netflix months after their release. So I think it's like, once it has its run, they're like, hey, we'll give you X amount of dollars if we can run it on our platform.
Yeah. And you obviously, you made sure you got your piece of wherever it came in this, right?
Yeah, my contract triggers whenever new content is made. So when I see it streaming, when I see it in the top 10, I'm taking screenshots and sending it to the producer, be like, hey, it's finding second life on Netflix.
From the inception of the snippets, the episodes you did yourself on YouTube till now, obviously the concept and the characters have grown, changed, flushed out, evolved. Was that your initial thought?
So they had to add characters, and they were concerned about it being like a bug show. And so I remember some point telling the animation director, I'd be like, it'd be so funny, it'd be so cool to have a cute praying mantis. He's like, I had the idea too, but they didn't want to make it a bug show. So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense why there's some, different types of animals to kind of even it out. Notes you get from Warner Brother versus, different areas. You kind of have to appease everyone. The one character that I did have an idea for, and from the beginning was, I knew there had to be a fly because there's the natural enemy. So there's that duality there.
Yeah, coming together. I like that. During this process, did it ever come up for you like, I want to try other formats, other mediums outside of just the YouTube snippets, the TV show?
In order for me to get excited about something, I have to see it. And at the time, I'm like, my brain is thinking about these in little nuggets, little moments. So what would it even look like if it was a feature? Like, that's a whole story arc. You're going to need to flesh out a whole bunch of characters, and it wasn't thought out. So when people say, do you want to make a movie? I'm like, well, I don't know. Would it be a good movie? Like, there's a lot that would have to be figured out. There's days where I'll stop and be like, I can't believe that all happened. This is so cool. Like, I'm so thankful for that experience. I'm thankful that I know that it's like this sense of empowerment that if I or anyone has a good idea, there are ways for it to see the light of day. You hear stories of creators, they create a million things, but that one thing takes off. And it's like, well, the best thing you can do is just keep creating. And then if it happens, then that's awesome. You get to have that experience. But if it doesn't happen and you're making things that you want to create, you're enjoying that process. So at the end of the day, I think you make things because you love doing it, not because the enjoyment of working on Lucas the Spider started to wane a little bit. The more things became logistically more about money, more about legal, more about the further away it gets from just me having an idea and making it, the more I wanted to step away.
Give me like one or two of the best moments of creating Lucas the Spider, and then one or two of the worst.
Yeah. It was a pretty cool rush every time I post an episode and you get that immediate feedback. I remember there's an episode I had him playing with the harp. The bird comes and
I
steals it.
remember that one.
Within 2 days, it was like 10 million views. You're getting all these likes, and the comment section is such a toxic place. But it wasn't for Lucas the Spider. It was just very loving, kind-hearted people that liked the entertainment. There's a great feedback. I'd say that the lowest moment was definitely when the first shipment of plushies arrived. Half the voice boxes didn't work, and that created probably the biggest stress that I've ever experienced in my life. Yeah, it was sort of like, what do we do? This is a colossal mess. We had to work out a deal where they would remake all the replacements, and then we would send it out, but that created so much frustration and just the daily emails of people like feeling like they're scammed and being like, oh my gosh, no, this is not our fault, and we are trying to remedy this. There's a toy company that was trying to show a Lucas Spider prototype, and they flew me out to show me. And as I was landing, I was getting messages from the people at the factory be like, hey, is there anything we need to do to turn the voice boxes on? No, there isn't. It's just a simple voice box. That started that journey of like, what the heck happened? Essentially, I think what it was just defective batteries. The voice boxes themselves work, which, by the way, if anyone has a Lucas Spider plush and the batteries have run out and you want to revive it, if you know how to sew and get into a plush, they're easily replaceable. You can get the voice box working again. Actually, no, here's my biggest regret. When we made the plush, we didn't put Velcro for the voice boxes.
Wow.
That's
Velcro
one that I
and
would have
duct
done.
tape saves everything, man.
Yeah.
Man, that's rough.
But holy cow, like, how could you possibly know that?
You know, Lucas the Spider started as a simple contained idea. What do you think about the concept that popped and resonated with so many people?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I'm still learning about this as I go, because as I make things, I get varying degree of feedback and excitement. Nowhere near the level of what Lucas is. So every time I make something, I think, well, what is it about this that didn't work the same way it did with Lucas? I think it challenged the stereotype that spiders are scary. It was done at a level that looked realistic enough that you did a double take. Is that real? Is that not real? It's really cute. Like it's causing you to have a reaction. And then the storytelling is grounded in, tried and true principles that make content entertaining.
Yeah. Just in general, like, what does it feel like that you've created something that has resonated with so many people around the world?
It's really cool. We all have favorite shows growing up, and Power Rangers is seeing a revival now, and like I was the ripe age for Power Rangers, and that sort of shaped my childhood, and so much nostalgia there. It's just so cool to think that something I created will be people's nostalgia all over the world.
Yeah.
There's that, and there's also a little bit of, when there's layoffs and you're not laid off, you have that survivor guilt a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, why me? Sometimes I have that where I'm like, there are so many creators around me that are so amazingly talented and more so than I am in so many different ways, but they're not able to hit that one thing that goes viral. It's like humbling, like be grateful and don't let it get to your head, because this is a culmination of a lot of things that worked out in the right way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, like, if I had a time machine and went back and tried to redo it again, I'm not sure it would have worked.
Yeah.
I'm sure if one thing wasn't right, then all the momentum could have just sputtered
Could've
out.
went a different way. YouTube is such like a powerful tool and a platform for like indie creatives. Like, how crazy is that to you now, looking back at like the evolution of content creators, YouTubers?
Growing up, I had sort of channels I looked up, like Don Hertzfeldt with Rejected and all his cartoons. Simon's Cat was another one.
Yep.
And it's so funny, as kids or students, you look at those and you kind of put them up on a pedestal of like, oh my gosh, these are geniuses. And then to one day kind of almost accidentally find myself kind of in that same conversation. It's like, wow, that's so cool. I wonder if their stories are similar. I wonder if they were
in their apartment animating. After the aftermath of this process, do you have any thoughts of like, I want to get back on YouTube and have any more ideas that I want to
do? Yes, the trick is just time and money. Like if I'm working at Disney, that takes up X amount of brain power.
Yeah.
And is there anything left over to do something on my own? If I left Disney, how do I account for the money that would pay for mortgage and all the things in life? Lately with my son, I've had the thought like, yeah, that'd be fun to make him a character.
Oh wow! Because Lucas is your nephew, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. What's the name of your son?
Aiden.
Aiden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be something that truly, if only 5 people ever saw it, but Aiden was one of them, like that would be worth it. So I'd free myself completely from this has to be something.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, I just want to make him a character. And because another thing that's cool about that is Lucas, who's now 12, he's right on the edge of having his voice change and becoming a teenager. So you have his kid voice will live on to everyone in the family. They can always visit that and sort of remember it.
It's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm putting it out in there. Lucas and Aiden.
Yeah.
Save the world. When you did Lucas the Spider, you weren't a dad. And then now having a kid, a newborn, is there a change in perspective? Does it hit different?
A little bit. I think I'm more accepting of content that is geared to a younger age. Actually, it's interesting. If you look at the first episodes of Lucas the Spider, I kind of had this for all ages kind of mentality. Like, make this as entertaining to appear as it would be a kid. And then when it went into becoming a TV show, that's when it shifted down to preschool level. So that's when certain choices kind of had to be a certain way. And at first I was like reluctant, I was like, don't dumb it down too much. Don't, like, keep something in there, like something for the adults. Yeah, what that looks like in my head is a little bit different now since having a kid, because it's like, oh, it's for them. Yeah.
For the YouTube side of things, were you seeing significant amount of money through Lucas the Spider monetization?
Yeah, I think I remember some of the numbers. So like the episode with the harp, that one was seen 10 million times that first weekend, and by Monday it already pulled in like $6,000 of ad revenue. From then on, the next couple of weeks, it would pull maybe another 5,000 to 6,000. So an episode that was seen maybe 20 million times within the first month made around 10, 12 grand. But then the merch shelf that where you could sell your own items, that doubled the amount. From this point, I think the highest episode was like 95 million. So it's like, I guess a benchmark is that if you have content that's like 45 seconds to a minute and it's seen 25 million times within a month and you have a merch shelf, you could expect 25 grand. The only caveat to that is this is before they shut down the comments
for kids
and the community tab. So I'm not sure what the numbers look like now, because that came after I had transferred all the rights over to Fresh TV. So they run the channel and they see those numbers now. It is still going. So like a year ago, it crossed over 1 billion views across the whole channel. And it was like this big thank you post, dude. Like, oh my gosh, 1 billion views is amazing. Recently I checked it and it's like at 1.2. So much of what's on there now is just excerpts from the TV show. So it kind of became like almost like a commercial, like for the show.
Man, thank you so much, Joshua. This was a great conversation. I didn't know how it was going to go. This is starting out the special conversation section of the podcast. Man, I appreciate you talking to me about Lucas the Spider.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's good to catch up too.
Yeah. Peace.
Yeah.
That wraps up today's conversation. If you're on the journey to make your first film, or just want to hear more about filmmaking experiences, subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, and connect with us on Instagram. Stay tuned for the next one.